All right, now it's time for me to introduce to you our next speaker. He didn't send me a bio either, yet we were kind to you, Bob. We didn't put the word out to the Facebook community to write your bio the way they got the chance to write Ben's. I'll just tell you, this is a guy that was here when this all started. That's right. Active Rain would not be Active Rain today if it was not for the community evangelist, Bob Stewart. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm hoping you know who this man is, and if you don't know who Bob Stewart is, you will soon enough. Bob, will you talk to us today about using our content properly?
That's what I'm going to shoot for, Chad. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a little bit out of sorts. That crash sent me like bolting out of my padded room that they place me in when we do these things. Deep breath. Let's do this. So we're going to talk about using our content to convert prospects and leads into clients. And I've had this conversation with a number of people, and the very first time I had this conversation was with a gentleman at the first RE bar camp that we did in Seattle, and it was hosted at Zillow's headquarters. And one of the bloggers, he'd been a longtime Active Rain blogger, and you know, we were having small talk before bar camp got started, and I asked him what he did with his content after he posted it. And I was expecting at that point, and this guy, he must have had 600 blog posts that he'd written, and so obviously those things go out there and they live on the internet, but I was kind of looking for, you know, what other things did he actually do with the content that he's created, because he had this massive library of content, and his answer kind of shocked me a little bit, and he essentially said nothing. He had never done anything with his content other than just post it and hope that it got in front of the right people. And so I wanted to take a chance today to close up RainCamp here and talk a little bit about what you guys can do with some of the content you're creating. And Greg talked in his presentation about, you know, content, right? He's talking about emailing these people twice a month, and so you're going to have to be creating content of some sort. Ben talked about blogging about your listening. There's all these different things that we could be creating content about. So once we have that content, how do we make sure that we get the most out of it? So there's three things that I'm going to kind of talk about, and it's really how your content can kind of create a ripple. And what a lot of us do is we focus mainly on that biggest circle out there, and there's good reason for that, right? We're attempting to utilize our content to find people that don't currently know us. And so we post our blogs on Active Rain, or we post on Craigslist, or whatever it is where we're posting out there, and we're trying to get Google to find us and bring us back traffic. And that's all good, but I'd like to talk a little bit about maybe some of the other ways that we can utilize that content after we've finished posting it. So I'll call this first approach the prayer approach. And it's not because it doesn't work, right? And it's not to say that prayer doesn't work. And if you saw me right now, I'd have my hands in that same exact fashion that you see on the screen. But the prayer approach to me is you post your content, it gets out there in the search engines, and then you sit back and pray that somebody's looking for what you just posted, and then they might find it. And the reality is, if you join us for boot camp tomorrow, that class is going to be about SEO. I'm going to teach you how do you go about being the most effective with this prayer approach, right? But essentially, you're just sitting back and saying, okay, once it's out there, I'm done, and I can't really control it anymore. It's going to depend on who's looking for the content that I've created. Now, this works, okay? Don't get me wrong. The gentleman that I talked to at bar camp, he had posted 600 blogs because he was getting business from it, and people find these blog posts. This is one lady. This is from, let's look at her statistics inside of Active Rain, and this is a series of blog posts over about a 2-week period. And this is a lady named Penny Hull, who's out of Raleigh, North Carolina. And this is old content, right? It's 4 years old. But when Penny posted this content 4 years ago, she essentially sat back, she put her hands together, and she said, it's out there. I hope people find it. And people find it, okay? This 2 weeks of blog content from 4 years ago has generated over 78,000 clicks to her blog. And no doubt it's generated clients, right? If we look real close at some of the stuff she's writing about here, you know, new custom homes at Cattail Creek, right? If we go and we're looking for homes for sale in Cattail Creek, we're still going to find Penny's blog posts showing up. So we want to make sure that we're definitely getting our content out there in the right fashion, and we'll talk about that tomorrow at our first boot camp session. How do we write a blog post that's going to rank well for us in the search engines. So this component of things, the prayer approach where we just post it and then we sit back and we hope that people contact us, they pick the phone up, they click the links that head to our website, right? All the things that we're going to talk about in our bootcamp series of how we can take our content and using the prayer approach was essentially just getting it onto the first page of Google. You know, how can we turn those people into clients? But that works, all right? I can't, you could dispute it with me, but you can't dispute it with the person that left this review of their Active Rain Rainmaker blog, right? $12,000 in commissions, and he's only posted 22 blogs, right? If I knew that every blog that I posted was going to be worth about $500 to me, I'd have a heck of a lot more blogs out there. I'm sure you would too, right? So let's just, assuming you come take my bootcamp classes, you learn how to get your content to rank on the first page of the search engines, we'll assume that we can get traffic and we can potentially get business from people we don't know by creating good content. But how do we make this work to help us close business today? How do we take the content that we've created and maybe get a little bit more legs out of that content so that it's not just sitting out there, we're not just putting our hands together and hoping that somebody's searching for the, the topic that we were writing about? And there's two kind of approaches to this. There's the share it and sit back, which I think is a little bit like the prayer approach. And then there's the one that I'm going to really kind of focus on towards the end here, which is target our content and make it work for us. Put it to work for us. So let's look at share it and sit back. We'll call this the shotgun approach, okay? And what the shotgun approach is it says we create a piece of content and then we're going to share it in as many places as we can. Okay, so where are we going to put it? Well, maybe we're going to put it on our Facebook business page. If we have a Facebook business page set up maybe for a subdivision where we're writing about something that's going on in that subdivision or about homes for sale in that subdivision or a market report for that subdivision, we're definitely going to want to share it on that Facebook page. Occasionally, you might want to share content of this nature on your personal Facebook page, right? You probably wouldn't want to share every single blog post that you ever wrote. You probably wouldn't want to share every market report that you ever wrote. But there do become times when it makes sense to share something that you've written on your personal Facebook page. We're definitely going to put it out there on Twitter, okay? Hopefully you guys have a little bit of a following. You're starting to get connected on Twitter with people that are local to you, right? We're probably going to try to use some good hashtags, right? If I'm in Seattle, I'm going to use #Seattle, right? We're going to share it on Google+. And the reason we have, look, Google Plus is actually a place I would share every piece of content I've written, especially if it's something that I'm hoping to get to rank in the search engines. And if we're using that prayer approach where we're going to be writing good, strong, solid content from an SEO perspective, right? Anything we can do to get it to rank a little bit better is a good thing. And Google Plus, and we've done a series of webinars on Google Plus. We'll give you our YouTube channel here in a minute. We can go look at like an old webinar we did on Google Plus where we talk about sharing your content on Google Plus can actually manipulate the search engine results of the people that you might potentially connect with. So we're going to share it on Google Plus. Now, the email newsletter, I consider that kind of a shotgun approach as well. And Greg talked about some of the things, and he gave you a place where you can go get some examples of some of the things or some of the types of content that you might send out in your email newsletter. But again, each of these scenarios is trying to reach people that you're connected to, but it might not necessarily be the best way to think about sharing your content. Now, you should definitely be sharing your content in this manner, right? You should be posting it on your Facebook business page. You should be posting it on Twitter. You should definitely be posting it on Google+. You should be utilizing content that you've already created that makes sense, that, like Greg said, is not a hard sell, that's educational in nature, right? You should be using that stuff in your email newsletter. A lot of you guys that took the time to come back in here and be on this call, you have a massive library of content. You've got all kinds of good stuff that you've written before, right? It might be the relocation package. It might be the 10 steps to get your home ready to sell. It might be, creating great curb appeal, right? There's all these kind of things that you've got, that you've built, right? This repository of knowledge in your blog that you can be utilizing in your email newsletter. So it's not going to be too hard for a lot of you guys to figure out 2 things a month to send, especially if you've been blogging for a little while. all right? But here's the deal. Are people actually looking for the message that you're sending out when they use social networks, right? Like, do you think that anybody who's about to get on Facebook right now is jumping on Facebook or is getting on Twitter thinking to themselves, I cannot wait for Chad Himes' next blog post about the market report in Fairhaven, right? That is not very realistic. It's not very real. What do people use social network? They don't use it, right, to find out information. Now, they might stumble across it, so that's why we're going to put it there, especially if we've got like a Facebook business page, or, you know, we've got a page set up for like a subdivision or a homeowners association that we're involved, right? We want to get the information into those places because it's applicable there. But to just think that all of the connections that we have in social media are sitting at their computer just hoping and praying that when they log on, they're going to see Chad's next market report, that's not very realistic, okay? And if that's all we ever did, that's all we ever posted on our social networks, that's all our Twitter stream was ever about, right, we're going to quickly get tuned out. There's all kinds of ways now for people to just tune out our messages, right? If you have any of your friends that like to invite you to play Farmville or whatever the newest fun new game is, you've probably learned how to mute people and how to ignore what they're talking about. So who is looking for my message? Right? Who are the people that would be more apt to receiving content from me than just anybody that I happen to be connected to? Well, I can think of a couple of groups, okay? So your sphere, and you can break these groups down however the heck you want. This is how I defined them today. You ask me tomorrow, it might be a different answer. But sphere, right? I know them. Greg called it as centers of influence, okay? Prospects, people I've talked to, right? So maybe they were a lead at one point, I've talked to them, right? They're becoming an acquaintance. And then leads, right? All these folks out there that signed up on my IDX, and I've never, ever been able to get them on the phone. I'm able to get emails to them, I think, or sometimes I know because they open up my emails and I can tell. And if Greg, you use Constant Contact like Greg, you can tell who these people are, right? He talked about moving over to that new system because it had better analytics for him, right? He wants to be able to kind of see who are the people that are raising their hand a little bit more than just anybody that I might be connected to. I'm just going to reiterate for him. This is the same message that he had on one of his slides. Stop sending generic messages to your database, right? Stop sending generic messages. Canned messages are bad, right? Canned, like fruits and vegetables, that looks good. But canned messages are not good. We need to be adding value, and especially when somebody identifies themselves as being something more than just a looky-loo or a lead, we really want to be able to target a message to that type of a person. So if you shouldn't be sending generic messages to your database, should you be sharing generic messages with your social circles? That's an interesting question, because on Twitter, it might be more applicable than on Facebook, right? On Google+, I'd say share it all because we're going to attempt to impact their search engine rankings. But think about it. Like, is there anything more generic than a white T-shirt? Yes. Some of the email newsletters that you guys are sending out, right? So we need to think, should we be sharing these generic messages with our social circles? And is there a better way maybe to do that? So think about it. We've got spheres. We've got prospects. We've got leads. We've got people that are identifying themselves and what interests them. Okay? So what do we do with that? Well, with your sphere, you should know what interests your sphere. Okay? You should know that your buddy who lives in Tam O'Shanter would be interested in knowing that, you know, the prices in Tam O'Shanter have returned to levels of 2008, right? I have a pretty good idea of what interests my sphere. So maybe instead of just shouting out to the world, and that's essentially, I think, what a lot of us end up doing when we use social media to kind of broadcast our business message, is we end up shouting these things out to the world, okay? Would any of you ever, because this is what social media is, it's a big party, right? Would any of you ever walk into a room, it's a party, everybody's having a good time, and the first thing out of your mouth is, hey, guess what, everybody? The prices of homes in Tamashanner are up 7% over last year. If you want to talk to me about it, I'll be standing over in the corner. No, you wouldn't do that, right? But you might grab the lady who's on the PTA with your wife. You might grab that person at the party and pull them aside and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know, we talked a while ago and you mentioned that when prices got back to the levels in 2006, you guys might be interested in looking at somewhere a little bit closer to your work, right? That's the idea of taking like a Twitter or posting a message on Facebook or sending a direct message to somebody, an email, right? Sharing a piece of content that you've created. So I actually tried to find something like this on Facebook. I literally spent an hour and a half yesterday trying to find a scenario where somebody had shared something of value, right? So they'd found something that they thought someone other person, not everybody, they just posted on their wall because that's all Facebook is, but where somebody found something that they thought would be interesting to another person and they directly posted it to that person. And you can do that either by going over to their wall and posting it there, right? You could do that by tagging them in it, right? I have to believe that this is happening, right? That Bill Spears would write a market report about one little subdivision in his area and feel like as he's writing that market report, there's somebody out there that this applies to, right? I'm connected with them somehow. I hope that he's just emailing it, right? But take a chance to share your content, right? Your valuable content that you've created with one person. The only thing I could find on Facebook that people write on each other's walls for apparently anymore these days is birthdays. Like happy birthday. That's all I could find in an hour and a half of searching. So here would be my challenge to you. The next time you create a piece of content, share it with someone specifically. Okay? Share that piece of content with someone specifically. I would encourage you to do this because here's why. All right? We've got all of these people. They're in our spheres. They're seller leads. They're buyer leads. We know stuff about these people, but we're just putting our content out there and hoping that they find it. Right? We're not taking a focused approach to saying, look, when I created this piece of content today, I had a specific person in mind. So the next time you create a piece of content, or maybe you're sitting there thinking to yourself right now, I actually have a really good piece of content. I have a market report that I did last month that should be in the hands of all of the folks that live in the subdivision that I farm, right? Share it with them. It might be a direct mailer, right? Ben's going to mail it out now because he doesn't get anything from his real estate agent, right? Think about your content in terms of who is the person that would benefit most from this content, and don't just let it be this thing that lives out there on the internet where you put your hands together and you pray and you hope that somebody finds it. What about your leads? What about your prospects? What about these people that you don't really know what they want? Right? How do you get a good idea of what would be a valuable piece of content to send someone like that? Ben mentioned it earlier in his little talk. Your IDX or CRM should absolutely give you some really good advice about what your prospects or your leads might be interested in, okay? Here's a back-end look at, this is the site Ben showed you earlier, benkinney.net. This is what his back-end looks like. And if you would have went to benkinney.net as a buyer, and you would have registered on there, and you would have looked at 18 properties, okay? I would have had a really good idea as Ben Kinney what interests you. Okay, what do I know about this person? Well, I could look at these individual listings and maybe get an idea that they really have to have a 3-car garage. I could look that they're looking at all lots over a half of an acre. I could see that they've had, 4 bedrooms is a minimum for what they're looking at, right? I get a lot of really good information about my prospects and my leads if I have a really strong IDX CRM combo. Right? Just like the one that Market Leader is going to give away when I'm done here, 3 people are going to have use of something just like this for the next 6 months. Okay? I can tell that there was one particular home he liked a lot. He looked at it 5 times. He shared it with his wife and his mom and his friend and said, hey, what do you guys think about this? Okay? I can now start to tailor the content that I'm sending to people based on what I know about them. If I come in here and I see that 6 of these houses are in the Carriagewood subdivision of Renton, right, I'm going to make sure that this person gets a piece of content about how awesome it is to live in Carriagewood, right? This is in a certain area of Renton. Half the people in Renton end up in the Renton School District. Half the people end up in the Kent School District. I'm going to make sure that this person gets a piece of content from me that shows them where to go to figure out what's the best school district for them to end up in. Okay? There's a lot that we can learn about somebody even before we get a chance to talk to them. And now as we begin to talk to our prospect and as we already know stuff about our sphere, we need to start to think about the content that I'm creating. Is there somebody out there that this might actually fit with? The better the lead or prospect, the more time we should spend figuring out what they would want from us, right? We did a Google Hangout yesterday, and one of the people that was on there said something about like the best stalkers are the ones that never get caught, right? There's all these ways out there now, just with an email address, that we can really check someone out, right? We can go to Facebook, and in the search bar, we can throw their email address in there. And as long as they allow it to be searched by their email address, we can see who they are, right? We might be able to see that they have kids, so school districts would probably be important to them. We might be able to see that, they enjoy going to plays, or, there's a lot of stuff that we can learn about somebody. And so the more, the better the prospect or the lead, the closer we can tell they are to buying, right? My CRM is going to tell me this person hasn't been on here for 6 months, and all of a sudden in the last week, every single day they've been opening the listing alert emails that I send them. They've been going to the website, checking out additional properties. This is a person that I might want to spend an extra 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes, investigating a little bit, seeing who is this person, where are they from? Oh, wait, I can look them up on Facebook, and I can see that they're not from Seattle, Washington. They're actually from Portland, and they're going to be relocating here. I might want to have a good piece of content put together, a relocation package to let somebody know, you're moving into the area, here's what to expect. Okay? The more better. The better you can get at identifying which prospects in your business need the most attention, the better you will be able to do at converting those people into actual clients. And the part of the process of converting them to a client is establishing value to them. And every single day, if you're blogging, right, you're creating content, or hopefully you're creating content that has value to the people that are finding it on Google. But how do we take that content and really get it into the hands of the right folks? This stuff becomes your blog fodder, right? The stuff that your people, the questions that the folks that you're interacting with are asking you, the things that you realize you need to create in order to convince somebody that you're an expert in selling homes in Carriagewood, the relocation package that I needed to make because I found out I've got a bunch of leads that are coming from out of state, right? This stuff becomes the fodder for the blog. You might write this for one person, right? I would actually encourage you, think about something that you can write for one person and share with them, whether that be sending them a tweet, dropping it on their Facebook wall, sending it as an email, right? Now, once you share that, you put it on Twitter, you put it on Facebook, right? 5 other people might be impacted by it. They might read it. It might confirm to them that you are that person that they want to contact, once they're ready to go. If you got a really sick database like Greg talked about earlier, right, it's going to be a consistent sort of message that you're kind of blasting out there, right? But not every time you blast it is it going to impact somebody, but it's going to impact a few people, right? And then it lives out there for people to find it over its life. And what ends up happening is a couple of years from now, you've got this great library of content that you've systematically used to take and help convert people into buyers and sellers, but lots of other people have had a chance to find it because you joined me for boot camp tomorrow. In the first class, we're going to talk about getting your content to rank on the search engines. So just realize, when you create a piece of content, that's not the end of it, okay? You need to think about, how can I get it out there? How can I shotgun it out there and make sure that all of the people I'm kind of connected to at least have a chance to see it? And then if it applies to somebody in particular, I really encourage you, the next time you write a piece of content, think about who that might apply to particularly and get it in to their hands. If you do market reports every month, there is somebody in your database that will benefit from your market report. Don't sit on your hands and hope that they find it, right? Don't put your hands together and pray that they happen to Google what's going to happen, to real estate prices or what's happened with real estate prices recently in their subdivision, right? Don't hope that they happen to log on to Facebook or Twitter or Google Plus. Does anybody even log in there? I don't know. But don't hope that they happen to come across the message as you blasted it out there to them. Take the time to consider sharing this stuff one-on-one with the prospects, the leads in your sphere, and see if that might help you convert a few more of those people into clients in 2013.